What do you do when things fall apart? How do you pick up the pieces and keep going? My name's Heidi, and in this video, I want to talk about living after everything falls apart and my response to the so many stories that were in the comments of my video. It took me 50 years to realize what I'll tell you in 10 minutes. So many people left so many amazing comments and shared stories, and I really felt like we had so much in common in the struggles that we face. And before I put up this video, I had 70 subscribers, and I shot so many of these videos and never posted them because it just felt so vulnerable. And as some of you know, maybe from some of my other videos, I can tend to procrastinate when I have anxiety about something or fear. But I opened that suitcase of courage, and I'm so glad that I did. I'm also so grateful to be able to share some of my free resources with people that are in the description, and to have so many people subscribe. So if you haven't subscribed and you like this content and want more from my journey and things that have helped me live a more whole, meaningful life, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. I want to just share some of your stories and give a few of my comments. So a lot of you said believing that you are enough feels fake or bizarre. And I'm right there with you. And it just took me so long, because we hear that from other people, like, you're enough, and I really appreciate you. But I think the hardest person to get to really digest it and believe it is us, ourselves. And if you have a long pattern, a long history like I had, of not believing in myself or not believing that I'm enough, then it takes a long time to create a new pathway that says you are enough. And it's something that I do every day with mirror work, where I just look into my eyes. And some days I don't say anything. I just try to breathe from my heart and look in the mirror. And at first, wow, talk about awkward. That was so awkward. Oh, I was at a workshop down in Costa Rica at the Global Happiness Summit. We had to stare into somebody's eyes, a stranger, for 5 minutes. Talk about awkward and looking through their soul. That was tough. But it's equally, or even maybe more so, in the mirror. But start small, 15 seconds. Do what you can. If you can put your hand on your heart and just breathe, looking at yourself without saying anything, that is huge. And work yourself up to a minute, 2 minutes. That in itself is a huge step, and definitely warrants celebrating that win. And as you do it more and more, you gain confidence, you gain agency, you gain calm. Because when we don't have that inside of us and we depend on others or external things to help us feel enough, they're not durable. They're not going to last through the challenges in life. It's when you have it inside and you ground yourself and you have your back. You always have your back. No matter how bad you mess up, you're there for yourself. You're there supporting yourself. You build resilience that way. You build connection with yourself that way. And it actually helps you build connection with others in your relationships. So there's just a few things. Other viewers shared that chronic illness changed everything, and how to find meaning when your body limits you. And this is something really close to me because I experienced this for many years, where I lost the capacity to do most of the things that I was doing before. And I'm very active, and that was a big part of my relationship with my husband, and that was gone. And it was a real strain on the relationship, and a lot of loss there, a lot of grief. And I think for so long I looked just at the limits versus what I can do. And it's a huge perspective change, lens change, to look at what can I do instead of what can't I do. And it doesn't mean that you paint over the hard things that you can't do. I think that's important, to grieve that part, acknowledge that part, and acknowledge what you can do. And there are a lot of things you can do, even if you are ill. I had an amazing conversation that I'm going to post when I get to editing it with Viba, who is a gratitude teacher. And she talked about 10 different domains of gratitude. And those include work, home, food, water, animals, nature, self, and I can't remember the others. But starting a gratitude practice, no matter who you are or what's going on, there are always things that we can be grateful for. And just taking small steps with that. Looking at what you can do and having gratitude for that. She talks about doing 6 minutes of journaling in the morning about 5 things that you're grateful for yesterday. And not only writing what you're grateful for, but also writing the source of what you're grateful for. So I just saw a hummingbird come to a feeder, and I am so grateful that she's chosen our yard to have some food to stop. So I'm grateful for her, and I'm grateful for the frequent times she comes to the yard to eat. And it's a gift every time I see her, because she's such a miracle. She has led me to do a bunch of research on hummingbirds. They are miracles. They're incredible. They can fly across the ocean, and they weigh as much as a nickel. But anyway, maybe another video on them. They're incredible. Another one was, several of you mentioned toxic workplaces and feeling trapped, and how to protect your mental health. That's a challenge, and I lived that for way too long, way longer than I should. And it's really hard, especially if morale is low, you're not treated very well, you don't feel valued, you don't feel supported. And it's hard, but you need the job and you need the benefits. So that's why I stayed, and I also had great coworkers, but I never ever saw them because we were all busy with patients all the time. So we would have to get together after weekends, or sometimes most of the time we would end up staying late because we had to write our notes and we didn't have enough time during the day. So we ended up working way longer. But finding connections with people at work, and if you can, look at what you're gaining. It's kind of like the chronic illness one I was just talking about, trying to shift the lens and reframe, what am I getting out of this job? Or what am I giving in this job? My job, I was completely depleted. I was giving so much. And there was nothing left for me. But looking at the connections I was making with people who were my patients, connections I had with my colleagues, and reaching out to them for support, because we all were in it and we all were super low morale. It was really hard for many years, and we had a very toxic manager who was actually, I look back and it was harassment, and we didn't turn her in because we feared retaliation, because that was something that was very real. So I got through it with the satisfaction inside with what I was doing for my patients and my clients. And I got through it with having things that I loved doing outside of work that would be a highlight for me to look forward to. And no matter what job we have, we're always learning skills that we can apply at another job. And we don't always think about those skills and the transferability of those skills. But if you're working with anybody else, and most people are, even if you're remote, you're gaining interpersonal skills. You're working on time management. You're working on being detail-oriented and accountability, and a lot of things that you can capitalize on for your next job. And maybe you look out there at what else you would want to do. I read What Color Is Your Parachute and came up with some things and pursued that for a while, and that was helpful, but it ultimately didn't lead me on the path that I'm on now. And part of that is because I just got so sick I couldn't look for something for a long time, and then what I'm doing now just kind of found me. So sometimes doors open when we don't expect them, but creating a vision of where you want to go can help. Some of you are dealing with years of depression and isolation and want to break cycles that feel impossible to break. And I think there are a lot of people out there dealing with this. Whenever we have a cycle of anything that we've been in that's negative, it can seem gigantic to try and get out of. And I think with any situation, what is the smallest, tiniest step that you can take today to change that? It could be thinking about something else that you'd like to do, or sometimes forcing yourself to leave the house. Even to say, okay, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk, or I'm going to go to a coffee shop for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, to try and get out of that isolation. And it doesn't mean that that inside feeling of isolation goes away because you're now around people who you don't know. But if you can try and set that isolation or depression on the shelf, and I know for a lot of people they can't, but if you can just focus on something else, anything else, in a moment, that's a start, and that's a step. And tiny, consistent steps are what create movement and help to break cycles. Several of you mentioned living with difficult people or living in situations that you can't change, and how to deal with that and find peace in that. And that's a very challenging situation, and there are probably millions of people living in situations like that. And realizing that you can't change people, and some situations you can't change. A lot of situations you can't. But the one thing you can is you. And looking at, how can I reframe this? How can I have boundaries of what I'll let in, what I'll tolerate, and what I won't? And how can I stay true to myself in this difficult situation and live from that place? And one of the things that is helpful for me is space, being out in nature. So finding a pause for grounding yourself, whether it's breathing, whether it's moving, whether it's listening to music. I talked a little bit earlier about gratitude. Gratitude changes so much, and it's tons of research are documenting the changes that gratitude can create. So it's a very powerful method, and it's very simple. I would work on that. I would take even 60 seconds to breathe and just find one thing you're grateful for, and start with easy things. Maybe it's not that challenging situation that you're in. And then that will allow you to access more of your thinking brain. So maybe you can think of situations or opportunities to change your situation. And I realize there are a lot of people who are caregivers and taking care of family members that have no timeline, no idea when it's going to end. And that's very difficult. And that's something that you can't get out of. But it's important to take time for yourself and give yourself compassion and give yourself kindness. And that's also really important for the people who have depression and isolation that I just talked about too. Giving yourself kindness in any way you can is really important and can shift those feelings. And gratitude does too. So I want to talk about viewers talking about regrets and missed opportunities and processing that. And one of the things that I talk a lot about with my friend Marvin is that regrets and missed opportunities, because he's around people who are at the end of their lives and have regrets. And here's one thing that is really interesting that I never really thought about around regret, and that is that everything in your life has led you to the moment you're living right now. And it's easy to go back and imagine, oh, I wish I had done that thing. I wish I had said that to that person. I wish I had given that person a chance. I wish I had taken that risk. But everything in your life would be different had you done that. And you wouldn't be where you are right now. I mean, I'm not talking about, oh, I should have had cereal over eggs for breakfast. I don't think most people have regrets about that. It's more the bigger things. But you wouldn't be where you are. You wouldn't have the lessons that you have learned. You wouldn't have the people in your life that you have. And there are things I would do differently if I had to do it over again. But I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't know who I know. And my life would be so different. And I think if you can think about it in that context, and right now, I'm aware, and I want to live the rest of my days with intention, making choices that are my choices, not the expectations of others or society or whatever. I get to design my life and my choices and choose my responses to the things that happen to me that I have no control over. So I can't change the past, but I can live in the now, and I can choose my perspective for the future and how I want to respond to the future and what things deserve my attention to move me toward where I want to go in my life. The little hummingbirds back. Some people commented about picking up the pieces after losing everything and how to start rebuilding. Again, it's hard to know where to start, for sure. And for me, what I started with was journaling and just writing so much. I mean, I'd never written before, and I filled volumes. Just having the space to get it out, put it on the page. There's no judgment. No one's going to read it. I didn't even read it. But just to process what's going on. Process the grief, the fear, the anxiety, the loneliness, the depression, getting it onto the page, all the feelings. That is a huge step. And then taking a step, one step, or if you can, more than one step a day, but one step, one small step toward, I think, building acceptance and building the relationship with yourself. And that could be gratitude, that could be doing something that you put on your schedule and staying with it, making that commitment and following through and celebrating that you just did follow through. And exploring things that you enjoy or maybe are curious about. Connecting with people and reaching out to support when you need to, because people like to help people. And not thinking about it as this big, giant mountain that you have to climb every day. That was hard for me. I felt like every day was a mountain, and I was in flip-flops climbing an ice wall, and just felt like I could get no traction. But little by little and step by step, I made progress. And I never had an end in mind, but you could have an end in mind. It wasn't until a couple years after I started all of this that I developed a vision of where I wanted to go and what I wanted my life to look like. And that was really important for a few reasons. One, I would go and embody the feelings as if I was living that, and they felt really good and actually helped with healing. And number two, I had in my awareness the things that I was trying to move toward in my life and open up to in my life. And in that, the way our brain works, we're aware of the things that are important to us. And so more things will come into your field of awareness as you put more importance on them. So I'll give you a little example with my hummingbird. I never, ever knew what a hummingbird sounded like. And I started putting it together a few years ago, the sound of a hummingbird. And now I see them everywhere and I hear them everywhere. And I don't think that it was that all of a sudden there are a ton of hummingbirds. I think it's because now they're in my awareness because I love them so much. So it opens us up to receptivity and awareness and opportunities that we may otherwise have not thought about or realized in people that come into our lives. So thinking about the vision, embodying that vision, and then taking one small step with your attention, research, or a book or a person in that direction, and celebrating movement and commitment to yourself and being kind when you had a day and you didn't take a step. And that's okay too. We're human. Several viewers also shared about the end of relationships and heartbreak. And how hard it is to heal and try to get that person back and not being able to get that person back. And it's one of those things where there's nothing you can say that is going to change that depth of absence in your heart when you lose someone. And I always think that the depth of your pain and your grief is proportionate to the depth of your love of that person. And so it takes time to heal that. It takes a lot of time, and being kind to yourself and trying to find ways that you can involve yourself in other things. It's important to feel the feelings, because if you just stuff them down, they'll come back, or they'll manifest in some way in your body. And if you can have moments, I love my dog. Well, I love my dog anyway, but I love her because she makes me be so present and I forget. I got her as a puppy a couple months before my sister committed suicide, and I don't know what I would do if I didn't have her. She required all my attention because she was so crazy. And I'm not telling everybody to go get a puppy, but it was just a way for me to immerse myself in something else, so the pain wasn't all-consuming all the time. And as time goes by, it does ease. And there is joy amongst the pain. You don't have to wait until you are healed from that grief to be able to experience joy. There's so much in life that challenges us. And I think it offers us opportunities to look for the hidden strengths, the lessons that life is trying to teach us. And ultimately, the choice that we have to go deeper inside and develop ourselves. And so much of life gives us the opportunity for that. And developing yourself inside and that groundedness is what helps build your resilience and helps you find joy in the smallest of things. So I hope this was helpful. I really appreciate all of you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.